let me bring you back to the beginning of Doctor Who animation. Nope, too far. Nope. Hang on. There we are. Before the 2005 revival of the series, Doctor Who fans were becoming more and more interested in a continuation of the Time Lord's story. And then, over a year before Billie Piper and Christopher Eccleston, there was Sophie Okonedo and Richard E. Grant. The first 3 attempts to produce Doctor Who as a web-only animated series were primitive, audio playing with largely static pictures illustrating the action. But this trend would change in 2002. BBC producer James Goss pitched a new online series of Doctor Who, a continuation with the introduction of an entirely new Doctor. Initially a hard sell, the success of the previous webcasts combined with the quality of animation produced for the webcast Ghosts of Albion meant that Goss and executive producer Martin Trickey had the go-ahead. Paul Cornell, one of the most successful writers of the Doctor Who novel lines, provided the script, and along with this, significant names, especially today, would headline the cast. Richard E. Grant as the Doctor, Sophie Okonedo as his companion Alison, and Derek Jacobi as the Master. However, any popularity surrounding the webcast was soon to be ripped away by the announcement of the new revival of Doctor Who by Russell T Davies. Scream of the Shalka was relegated to an oddity before it was even shown. Paul Cornell was introduced to the project by Elena Georgievich, a producer in the field of development at BBC. Cornell called his agent and told her that, upon consideration, he would be interested in such a project, at least to the point of getting a meeting together. Cornell called up Yelena and arranged the meeting, then called his old friend Rob Francis at BBC and asked what she was like. His reply, sitting right next to me, assured Cornell that Yelena was a force for good. The success of the webcast of Shada had made BBC more confident than ever that its webcasts were reaching a larger audience, even further than the bounds of just the Doctor Who fandom. Additionally, Big Finish's Doctor Who Unbound audios had made BBC aware of the idea of regenerating Doctor Who. Every relevant department of the BBC was now happy to see a new Doctor. Martin Trickey and James Goss had confirmed by the second meeting that regenerating the Doctor was possible, and the BBC team had come up with a shortlist of possible Doctors. From young to old, male and female, and including all ethnicities, but one name kept coming up. Notably, Eddie Izzard, Douglas Henschel, and Robbie Williams were all under consideration to play the Doctor. Meanwhile, a start was to be made on the story. First up, the monsters. Martin Trickey wanted something threatening, something properly unique, something universe-shattering. A thought that Paul Cornell considered somewhat of a trap, but 3 drafts later, Cornell made the Shalka. The other factor that shaped the Shalka was the design. Doctor Who had done snakes before, but failed with creating convincing live-action effects. Either way, it was quicker and easier for animators to work on such monsters over humanoid foes. Cornell's first description of the monsters was as follows. The Shalakor are a race of intelligent parasites that spread world to world via meteorites. They consume the byproducts of industrial technology, so they prefer to feast on inhabited worlds where the carbon cycle is out of control. They themselves are killed in the process, but they see this as a worthy sacrifice for the ongoing life of their species. The Shalakor are silicon-based creatures, made of brittle rock, made mobile by magnetic force fields and lava-like blood in their bodies. They're like living statues. Shalakor soldiers are normally snake-like in form, but they have a humanoid cast of leaders and planners, and also breed giant snake forms and other specialities. Their culture is entirely based on whatever genetic memories remain in the race memory of the egg. Cornell states that the environmental aspect was something that Yelena had suggested early on. Obviously, for those who have seen the story, these plans aren't exactly what came to be in the final version. The Shalka, as they were renamed, would, according to Cornell, look ridiculously metaphorical if they fed directly on industrial products. Additionally, their desire for self-sacrifice and their lack of contact with other members of their species seemed to limit their ability to be Doctor Who monsters. Their plan, plus the magnetic fields that hold their bodies together in this version, also make no no reference to their central sonic scream ability. Eventually, it was Yelena who guided Cornell towards logic on all these matters, and insisted that the Schalke should be all about their scream. Further changes include Alison's job being changed from cinema usher to barmaid. The Master was originally intended to be a hologram of a previous Doctor, that of the Fifth. Minor changes were made all the time. In early drafts, all of the Schalke could talk as well as scream. After plenty discussions surrounding what Gareth Roberts called squabbling rubber, they decided that the less the Schalke talked, the more dangerous they would seem, giving them a worrying power in the face of the Doctor's continual monologue. Another major change was when Cornell was told not to write for audio, with added notes for the animators. The thought being that the script should make absolute sense to those who couldn't see the visuals, but that the final version wouldn't be slowed down with characters describing what everyone could see. There were initially plans for the story to be presented as a radio play on BBC 7. The first episode's draft was written with this in mind. However, plans for the radio play fell through, as it felt that this format limited the story. Soon after, Yelena moved on to other things, and a new producer, Muireann Lane Kelly, stepped in. Kelly was eventually responsible for casting the show, choosing the director, and asking the important questions, like who is the Doctor? The Doctor is a hero, an alien, unpredictable, witty, the absolute master of sudden and resolute action. He's an intellectual. He'll always go for the peaceful solution when he can see it. He's asexual, unattracted to humans, or perhaps to anyone. He's incredibly brave and angry at cruelty. Cornell's notes describe his thoughts and ideas better than I ever could, and it feels wrong to paraphrase the raw words that came from him. Not long ago, he lost someone he cared about. Maybe he couldn't do anything to stop it. Maybe it wasn't his fault. But from now on, he's not going to have anyone close to him that could possibly get harmed, so he can rely on his own instincts and skills without having to look out for someone else all the time. It's made him harder and colder inside, and completely unwilling to trust anything but his own judgment. So this story is about him regaining the little things by meeting Alison and letting her into his life. Cornell wrote the Doctor with an outer confidence and an inner vulnerability, and likened this to Sir Percy's double life from the BBC production of The Scarlet Pimpernel, which itself starred Richard E. Grant. Cornell goes on to describe the Doctor's new costume. He wears a sombre Edwardian suit in black or dark brown, with boots and waistcoat. No eccentric additions, no question marks. Some of this was eventually altered in the animation process, such as the addition of a cape, but the general idea remained the same. The Doctor was not the only important character making decision. The companion had to be equally as interesting. When the monsters came, she got just as scared as everyone else. She'd love to do something brave, but is waiting for something that would work. She seizes on the Doctor as the one unafraid person, until it becomes clear that he's only looking at the big picture and doesn't care much about the small stuff. That he doesn't do the warmer human feelings anymore. That she doesn't like. Alison wants the Doctor to be a very human hero, producing a tension that he can't quite resolve between his origins and how he appears. In many ways, she's his intellectual equal. He can't see the point in studying history, it's just stuff to hop past, but to her, it's a weave of cause and effect. A director, Wilson Millam, was on board, and after making some notes on the story, eventually came back with Muireann Lane Kelly with a cast. Top of the list was Richard E. Grant, the obvious choice for everyone involved. Alongside him would be Sophie Okonedo, a duo that would be sure to strike sparks off each other. Richard E. Grant had previously played another version of the Doctor for Comic Relief in 1999, in a special written by Stephen Moffat. He would later return to Doctor Who in Series 7, portraying Walter Simeon and the Great Intelligence. Sophie Okonedo would eventually return to Doctor Who in 2010 in the Series 5 episode The Beast Below, portraying the character of Liz 10. The role of the Master was given to Derek Jacobi, who would go on to reprise an alternate version of this character in the third series of Doctor Who, in the episode Utopia. Not originally cast, acclaimed 10th Doctor actor David Tennant makes a cameo role in the story. Tennant was recording for Radio 4 in a nearby studio. When he found out what was being recorded next door, he convinced the director to give him a small role, that being a caretaker in episode 3.
We're locked up for the weekend! Go away! There's nothing here!
The read-through was a massive success, much to the nerves of Cornell. The atmosphere was exciting, and the day ended with photo shoots for both animated reference and future marketing. They were all so sure that that day they'd all get home to find the internet full of rumours and debate. But there was nothing. Their secret project just couldn't stop being a secret. The next time Cornell saw the cast and crew was on day of recording. The audio was to be recorded first, with a representative from the animation team in attendance throughout. The special effects were prepared in advance. Some TARDIS effects were even taken straight from an ancient BBC sound effects LP. Encouraged by the director to improvise and add their own moments, the cast had found whole new levels of meaning in the script. The director would listen to a take, then run into the recording area, make some adjustments, and start back up from the top, pushing the actors to their limits. James Goss noted that Richard E. Grant bounded around the studio, whirling props over his head, booting, roaring, running and pounding tables. No take was ever quite the same. The team gathered at Centre House a month later to listen to the whole edit of the soundtrack. The edit that would eventually find itself in the hands of the very capable animation team over at Cosgrove Hall, and subsequently released weekly on the BBC's official Doctor Who website from the 13th of November to the 18th of December 2003. After the webcast, in 2004, plans for sequels were indefinitely shelved. For a period, it was unclear if the new television Doctor would be number 9 or number 10, but this was ultimately settled in April 2004 in an interview with Doctor Who magazine. A follow-up story was to have been another 6-part webcast called Blood of the Robots by Simon Clarke, with an outline and a draft script for the first episode being made. Eventually, BBC I were told to cease production because of the impending revival. Thanks for watching. You'd be surprised how much information really is out there about this fantastic animation, a lot of which I did have to miss out in this video. When you get into the animation, there's a bit less to talk about and it can become quite subjective. However, some of that really interesting stuff is included in the Scream of the Shalka novelisation and the 10th issue of the Black Archive, so I'd heavily recommend checking them out. I even talked a little bit about the animation in the Invasion video, like my first ever animation related video, so you can check that out if you want. Anyway, I'm Sam, and I'll see you next time.